series presented by our official sponsor, Gallagher. Thank you for Gallagher for their continued support of the official sponsor of the Special Olympic Sports and Coach Programming. Thank you to you all for joining today's webinar as we look to offer coaches more learning opportunities around the areas you want to learn about. Today's webinar is all about Coaching MATP Athletes. MATP, our Motor Activities Training Program, is our Special Olympics movement-based sensory sports programming for athletes with severe or profound disabilities and complex support needs. Thank you to Lions Club International Foundation for their continued support of Special Olympics and our MAPT programming. Some of the housekeepings, first of all. This webinar offers simultaneous interpretation in 8 languages. You can choose your language by using the global button at the bottom of the screen. Please add any questions you have for the speakers in the chat or the Q&A function. Hello, I'm Kiera Byland. I'm a Special Olympics Great Britain athlete and athlete leader. My sports are cycling, swimming, and horse riding. I'm a qualified cycling coach and a swimming teacher. I have completed MATP training. I've held many roles within ESO for the last 9 years, and my most recent one is to become the Global Athlete Congress Chair for the next 4 years. I am passionate about the unified approach, and one way we do this is offer a weekly mental health and wellbeing session called Strong Minds. I do this with Niamh, who I'll introduce to you soon. We have a special video from our proud MATP supporter. Let me introduce to you Rebecca Teal Dow. Serves as Executive Administrator of the Lions Club International, the LCIF. Rebecca first joined the foundation in 1999 as the site first coordinator for Africa and the Middle East. Served as the division manager for the LCIF since 2006 and was promoted to an administrative officer in July 2014. Prior to joining the LCIF, Rebecca served in the Peace Corps in Mali. She has a bachelor degree of arts in sociology from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign and a master's degree in public service from DePaul University. Rebecca is a member of the Lions Club at Burbridge, Hinsdale, and Oak Brook, where she has previously held positions of president, vice president, and secretary. Rebecca resides in Wheelton, Illinois, with her husband and 2 children. She also a volunteer with her church and parent-teacher association. So let's have a look at a video.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to share a message today. And my apologies for not being able to participate in person. My name is Rebecca Dow, and I'm with Lions Club's International Foundation, which is known as LCIF. For over 22 years, LCF has been proud to partner with Special Olympics around the world. Together, alongside our 1.4 million Lions members and our LEOs worldwide, we inspire inclusion through community service for millions of individuals of all abilities. The work we do together illustrates a shared commitment to our mission to improve health and well-being, strengthen communities, and support those in need. And I'd like to personally share how proud we are of the tremendous impact that we've had over 20 plus years. More than 458,000 Special Olympics athletes have received vision screenings. Almost 200,000 athletes have received prescription eyewear as a result of those vision screenings. And we've had over 22,000 of our Lions members and Leo members volunteer. But we know as Lions that there's always a need and more impact is always possible. And so that's why we continue to support the partnership in new ways. A newer component of our mission inclusion platform is the Motor Activities Training Program, which gives increased engagement to those athletes who have severe and profound intellectual disabilities. And we look forward to creating even more impact and helping more people through our work together in the future. So I want to, again, thank you all for your time today, and thank you for being part of Mission Inclusion. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
And thank you, Rebecca, for that video. I think we all found that interesting and informative. Moving on to our next speaker, I would like to introduce to you my friend, Dr. Niamh Mourton. She is an inclusive adapted movement specialist, a researcher, a lecturer, and a resource developer, a lifelong Special Olympics supporter. She is a new senior manager for the Special Olympics Most Activity Training Program, or MATP for short. She has 12 years of experience volunteering and leadership MATP at local, national, and international level. She has trained over 4,500 people in MATP across 20 countries, which is Special Olympics programs as well, and continues to advocate and enable MATP partnerships working across sports and education and health. She is currently working on the creation of new MATP resources and bespoke global training materials, which will enable and empower more regions and SO programs to take the lead of their MATP to grow locally. Welcome, Niamh.
Thanks so much, Kiera, and I'm really delighted that you and I can be on yet another webinar together, co-hosting and co-delivering. So thank you, everybody. I'm really excited to talk to you today about coaching our MATP athletes and giving you a little bit of context about what MATP is all about. So thanks, Kiera, for that intro and kind of background. I'm really, really passionate about not just sharing MATP, but also doing MATP and making sure that from a local to an international global level, we're growing MATP and making sure that we are providing really high quality sensory sports opportunities for people with profound disabilities and complex needs. So here is our little definition of what MATP is. And MATP is a Special Olympics official program and sport. It is our motor activities training program, and it's specifically for athletes with severe or profound disabilities and complex support needs. Now, I've highlighted a few of the words there, and I want you to kind of think about maybe why I've highlighted specific words. So it's a Special Olympics movement-based sensory sports program. It is a Special Olympics. We own MATP, and it is our duty to grow MATP globally. And we are one of the few organizations globally that have a program specifically for people with profound disabilities on movement, but I feel we are one of the only programs or organizations globally that actually are trailblazing for really providing high quality sport for people with severe and profound disabilities. I've also highlighted the word athletes because that is really unique to Special Olympics as well and to MATP. We provide a platform to ensure that people with profound disabilities actually become athletes, and they are treated like athletes and they're coached like athletes as well. And I think that's really, really important. And I highlight that because when programs and when local providers coach in MATP, it's really, really important that we raise the participants to that athlete level and actually refer to them as athletes within MATP as well. I've underlined the severe, profound disabilities and complex needs as well, because I think that's really important to understand a little bit about who our MATP athletes are. So if we go on to the next slide, we'll kind of just unpick a little bit about who our MATP athletes actually are. So our MATP athletes, a lot of the time, we refer to our athletes as having profound and multiple intellectual disabilities or complex support needs. And this is really important in terms of understanding what those needs actually are. I always kind of talk about our MATP athletes are athletes who have the highest support. They're probably our most vulnerable athletes across the movement as well. They have quite high needs in terms of support and health and sensory, cognition and physical disabilities. our athletes, we can't just have one umbrella term for our MATP athletes, because our athletes have lots of different needs. In terms of severe and complex support needs, that can be described as children and adults. So MATP is for children and adults who have multiple barriers to learning. And these barriers can come from a communication, a cognitive, a sensory, including vision or hearing, or physical needs. And the population of individuals that we work with very much include people with complex support needs. So we might have athletes who have high physical needs and high cognitive needs, who maybe are wheelchair users and have a severe intellectual disability. But we also see now more and more that MATP is opening up quite big and breaking down boundaries for athletes who are ambulant and can walk and can run, but actually really have high support needs in terms of their cognition and their sensory needs as well. So we are devising a little bit more clarity in terms of our language, so people can understand, actually, I want to engage in MATP, but who are the athletes and what are their needs? So just keep an eye out for our resources that we're going to be bringing out soon to really kind of help you to engage the right people for MATP as well. And MATP, it's really important to kind of talk about, when we understand who our athletes are, we understand who this training is for as well. And Kiera had mentioned that we are redeveloping resources for MATP. We're redeveloping resources for coaches. We're redeveloping resources for our unified partners for MATP, which is really exciting. And we're also redeveloping our resources for families and MATP. So it's good to keep that in mind when we think about actually who MATP is for, not just the athletes, but also for you, the coaches as well. So the training that we provide for MATP and for MATP athletes is very much support staff that might be working with people with profound disabilities. It might be teachers in educational settings who teach children and young adults with profound disabilities or complex support needs. It might be the family members of people with profound disabilities and complex needs. It might be coaches within sports organizations. It might be coaches within Special Olympics clubs already. It might be young leaders. It might be unified partners. It might be athlete leaders. So MATP is for everybody, and we offer our coaching for everybody. But it's really important to understand that our MATP athletes, because of their high support needs, they will usually have support people there with them, whether that's staff or whether that's family members. So you never have to do it alone. If you are a little bit worried about becoming an MATP coach because you've never maybe worked or interacted or coached people with profound disabilities before, we really see MATP as a partnership in coaching. It's about working with the athlete, working with their support staff, and working and bringing what you can bring as a coach to that table as well. So that's really important to kind of highlight and understand who our MATP athletes might be, but also who our MATP coaches might be as well. So in the next slide, we're going to talk about MATP really helps us in Special Olympics to create a place for everybody and every ability. We always say that we are for everybody, every ability, every age, every stage. And I think it's really important that we really highlight that MATP gives us as an organization a way to really say that with integrity and dignity. We do provide something for everybody, and this is why we're really passionate about growing MATP across our organization and working in partnership with other organizations to help grow MATP, because it provides the best sensory sports experience for people with profound disabilities. So I want you to have a little think about what meaningful sports opportunities are currently available local to you for people with profound disabilities and complex support needs. So just have a little think about that. And you might already have some sport opportunities or physical activity opportunities or exercise opportunities available to people with profound disabilities and complex needs. And why I say that is because MATP actually is a movement-based program, and we put that umbrella, that lovely umbrella of Special Olympics over it to help people to kind of create a meaningful pathway into a structure where people can be celebrated. But in terms of meaningful sports opportunities, Meaningful is when somebody is training to do something and then actually has the opportunity to actually showcase that and the skills that they've been learning. And also, I want you to think about actually what is meaningful to a person with profound disabilities. And that's really, really important in terms of building the relationships with people with profound disabilities for them to become athletes, because we can't think about what we want from MATP. It is such a unique program. We have to really consider what they want from MATP and the athletes. So I want you to think about that, because some people might already be doing some types of hydrotherapy. They might be doing some rebound therapy. They might be doing horse riding for the disabled. They might be doing sailing for the disabled, and people with profound disabilities might be able to access this. There's a lot of things that might be already out there that actually you can embed into MATP as well. And that's really important. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. We very much link to movement programs globally. And we have some really great partnerships with some organizations that specialize in movement or physical therapy or occupational therapy of people with profound disabilities. So have a little think about what you already provide, and then think about whether these sports opportunities, whether they're coached to be completed independently by the person with profound disabilities, or are they coached with partial or total assistance of the movement by support staff? And thinking about these opportunities as well. What does that look like for an athlete? Can somebody call themselves an athlete by engaging in these opportunities? And yeah, I just want people to think about what is already out there actually, and what's the potential of MATP and to take on MATP within your local area. Because if there's something already there, I can guarantee you we can integrate it into MATP. If there's any movement, physical activity, exercise already happening for people with profound disabilities, we can absolutely bring that into our MATP program. If there isn't, then MATP will be able to provide you with some of those solutions to make sure that people with profound disabilities are getting access to high quality sport for their needs. So next, we're going to talk about actually what is MATP. So MATP is a rolling program, and it's specifically designed to enable athletes with severe and profound and multiple impairments or complex support needs to participate in sensory sport. But also we have a lot of different programs where MATP is the physical education for children and young people with profound disabilities and complex needs. It is also seen as a physical activity, it's seen as exercise, but all important, it is seen as sport, and it's seen as the sport for people with profound disabilities and complex needs within Special Olympics. It is our sports offering for people with profound disabilities to ensure that we are absolutely catering for every single ability and everybody within Special Olympics. What makes MATP really unique is we have obviously lots of resource linked and training linked to how you can embed MATP within your program, within a school setting, within a community setting, within a home setting. But what makes us extremely unique is the MATP Challenge Day. And the MATP Challenge Day is an opportunity for our MATP athletes, when they've been training in a skill, to actually showcase what that sports skill looks like, and to be recognized and celebrated for their personal challenge. So I am constantly talking about how we need to reframe competition. We need to reimagine what competition is for people with profound disabilities. A lot of our athletes who are in MATP will not have the mental capacity or the cognitive capability to understand maybe rules or you versus me type of competition. But competition can be with yourself. And we provide a competition pathway in MATP because we give that opportunity for our MATP athletes to come to a challenge day and to showcase what they've been working on and showcase their achievements and be celebrated for that. And that's really, really important. We're going to show a video in a few minutes, and it's really important to kind of point out before we look at this, that I want you to think as we watch this video, what is the impact that MATP is having on the athletes in this video? What is the impact the MATP is having on the support staff or the teachers or the coaches in this video? And what is the impact the MATP is having on the families in this video as well? And hopefully we'll get that wider kind of picture of actually why MATP is so important and why it's important for all of us to really take hold of it and become coaches for it, and to really kind of share that MATP magic across the world. So we're going to show you a video now that talks about the journey that athletes can go on in MATP. So you'll see in this video where some of our athletes are training within their setting, whether that's a school setting or a community setting or home setting, and how they are training week in, week out, and then they have the opportunity to showcase what they've learned at a national games. And this is an example from Great Britain. And I want you to really just focus on what people are learning, how the coaches are coaching, and also that really wonderful challenge day, and actually how unique it is that we give especially family members and support staff the opportunity to really celebrate the achievements of our MATP athletes. So we're going to show you this video, and I want you to sit back and enjoy, and maybe after we watch the video, pop into the chat box what you think of this video, and actually what your kind of words that come to you about this video are.
Jack's 9 years old, coming up to 10. I kind of don't listen to people when they say that he can't do something, because I think that most things are possible. We just try and push the boundaries with Jack. We try and encourage him to do whatever is set out for him. When I heard about the Olympics, I thought he can do this, and he can do it really well. When I first saw him take part in races, he just amazes me every time. So I'm really proud of him.
MATP is completely unique. It's really refocused support staff on the fact that complex needs students are entitled to high quality PE just like every other student. Although we're working on sport-based activities MATP, it's really pertinent to the individual. We're looking at our students saying what motor skills do they need to learn, and then we're teaching them those motor skills through MATP.
Motor Activities Training Programme, so called MATP for short. It's a programme for people with profound disabilities and complex needs. We make it very sport specific, and we link it to the wider Special Olympics remit. People who do MATP become athletes, and they actually represent their clubs and even the regions, and like this nationally at their challenge day.
I always get excited when they do these things at school, but to hear that they're going to Sheffield and doing a big event, I was really excited.
The important thing about events like this is the visibility. We're showing that these young people have the right to have access to movement and to sensory stimulation and to emotional development the same as any other young person.
I wouldn't say it's about winning or losing. I think it's about developing specific life skills.
They can transfer them skills in the home environment as well. And our long-term goal from an academic perspective is for developing independence.
Even for students who don't have the cognitive ability to fully understand what it's about, as part of just being human, having everybody cheering you on in a sports hall in that context boosts self-esteem, provides an amazing sensory experience. It gives more of a group feel, more of a team feel.
For the MATP programme, I think this is a massive journey that they've travelled on. And when we are here today, it's absolutely been magical in terms of them celebrating their success and having that honour to be here, witness that, and for them to have that experience and have a massive crowd looking at them, applauding them and celebrating for them for who they are and what they can do and achieve. It's been amazing.
If you take from where they were when they first started to where they are now, it's brilliant.
It's quite a new thing to us as well, but it is a programme where they've trained each week at school, and each week they've overcome different milestones. It's been lovely to see today what they've all been up to. We know how special our children are, but to actually have it celebrated, it's just been magical, absolutely amazing. I'm so proud of this boy, so proud of him.
It's lovely that MATP gives a way for teachers and service providers to show parents and people who are funding either education or service provision that people are improving and they're making progress.
I think it will really help him because he's learning new skills all the time. When he first started school, he couldn't even walk in his walker. Now he can basically run in it. We're optimistic that he will be able to walk in a couple of years, I think, on his own, unaided. The Special Olympics and all the practice and everything that goes into it is helping him try and achieve that. You can achieve almost anything, I think, and these Special Olympics have helped Jack achieve what we obviously didn't realise that he could do.
And hopefully that video helps to kind of bring MATP to life and actually how special it actually truly is. I love looking at that video, and I've seen that video so many times, and every time I just get like emotional because that is exactly what we need to do. And we need to kind of work together to make sure that everybody across the world has the opportunity to access MATP. I saw, thank you, yeah, put into the chat box what you think of that video and of MATP. And yeah, I love that. It's about us offering this. We own this as Special Olympics. It's Special Olympics MATP. It is our responsibility to make sure that we get this out to everybody. I saw a message come through the chat about opportunities to be trained in MATP, and we will share those, absolutely. We want to make sure that everybody can access training for MATP, because MATP, as I said, it's a real partnership working. You saw that there was family members there was teachers, there was coaches, there was athlete leaders, there was young leaders. Everybody should be able to access some type of MATP training to come together and find our MATP athletes of the future and be able to actually work with them to give them those opportunities. And I keep saying about that challenge day and actually how important it is. And I think it's important for us to share the strong stories of MATP as well and the impact that it has. Within MATP, our challenge days can be done. You saw one there that happened in a corridor of a centre, or it can happen at a big event as well. And those challenge days are really, really important because they give an opportunity for that athlete to be celebrated. And a lot of people with profound disabilities and complex support needs don't get that opportunity to be celebrated. I've been at many, many challenge events, whether that's local, in the setting, or whether that's national or international. And one of the biggest common things that I find from that, because I will go and I will talk to people who are in the audience watching, I will talk to the athletes, I'll talk to their coaches as well and their support staff. And one of the biggest things that comes back is actually just the emotion of the fact that a lot of people at that challenge day, that is the first opportunity either an athlete has had to be celebrated, or it's the first opportunity that support staff or family members have had to actually look around a room and hear people cheering and celebrating their person with a profound disability. And that's why we need to really, really, really help grow this movement, but not just the motor activities training within a setting or within a sports session, but also this challenge day, because there is nowhere and nobody else in the world that is providing that opportunity for people with profound disabilities to really be celebrated and really be put on that pedestal and kind of recognized for the hard work that they've been putting into their movement and their sport specific activities as well. Another kind of story that I like to share about the impact of that challenge day. In that video, there's some fantastic athletes, and actually one of those athletes, Ellie May, and you'll see a picture of her later on in the presentation, and I'll point her out to you. Ellie May was one of the athletes that had been doing MATP for about 2 years within her school. And she was representing her school and her region at the national games. And she was in her regional Special Olympics kit. And she came out and she was in her walker and she was walking towards her sparkly finish line, because it had all the sensory objects on it to make sure that it was engaging for her. And Ellie May had a fantastic time. She's only 8 at the time. Her family were all there. They all had banners with her name. They all had T-shirts with her face on, and it had been their first ever opportunity to actually celebrate Ellie May for sport, and to celebrate her in a way that they've been able to, or they've taken for granted that her siblings have always had the opportunity to be celebrating sport, because they have football games or they've got gymnastics meets and the family can go and support the other siblings. This was Ellie May's kind of time to shine, and they absolutely loved it. Sadly, a few weeks after that challenge event and that video, Ellie May passed away. Because the reality of MATP is we are working with the most vulnerable athletes out there. We are working with a lot of athletes who have very, very complex health needs alongside any of the other challenges that they face. And the impact that challenge day had on Ellie May and her family was enormous. And so much so that when she passed away, they asked us for a spare medal, because they wanted to bury her with her medal, because it was the biggest achievement. They wanted to make sure that she was remembered for representing her region and herself at this national event. And then they made a memory box to make sure that they had pictures and her medal and her kit as well, to kind of make sure that she was remembered for being a champion and an athlete as well. So it's really important for us to share actually the impact that MATP has, not just on the athletes, but on the family members, on the wider community, on the teachers, on the support staff that work with people with profound disabilities. So MATP, I think I've got you. I think we all know it's really, really important, and it's really, really special. And I know that you want to kind of come with me and kind of grow MATP globally as well. So the next slide, we're going to talk about actually what is MATP in general. And I've been a coach for years and years, and I wanted to make sure that we could create something that was replicatable and that we could grow globally, and keeping it simple. So we've got a core set of skill areas in MATP, and those core areas are mobility, which is gross motor skills, and dexterity, which is fine motor skills. And then kicking is anything lower body, striking is anything upper body, and then we've got a swimming element to it as well. Now, I always like to kind of unpick what that looks like. Mobility looks very different for all of our athletes. So you might have somebody who uses a manual wheelchair, somebody who uses an electric wheelchair, somebody who can walk, somebody who can run. So mobility is that gross motor skills, and it's moving the body like this way, that way, forward, backwards, while you're standing, while you're sat, even if you're lying down. And what makes our skill sets really important is that we take what the athlete needs to be working on. So everybody will have physical targets that they need to be working on. To the different skill areas that we're working on. So mobility for somebody might be if you have an athlete who in their independent moving or their physical development with their occupational therapist or their physical therapist, maybe they've got some goals that they want them to be able to look down while they're walking and look up as well. And they need to really work on the different ways that you can teach that motor skill. Now, that would involve maybe working on hurdles in athletics. So we link it to a sport but we make sure that they're learning the motor skills that they need to function in life and in sport as well. So that person might be working on stepping over different objects, and we're linking it to hurdles in athletics, and they are celebrated for that in their challenge event. So not only are they learning a sport-specific skill, they're also having the opportunity to be celebrated in it, and that skill will have an impact on their wider life as well. So that's what it might look like in mobility. You might have an athlete who is a wheelchair user and has very limited movement, gross movement. They might work to come out of their chair onto a mat, and we might work on lifting their head up off the mat, or even a rolling activity. We might link that to gymnastics, and we might coach it in a way that's going to help that person to actually improve their posture stability, or that links to some of their posture stability that we're working on anyway outside of sport and outside of MATP. So we want to make sure that what we're working on is relevant to the athlete, that it's something that they want to work on, and then we work on actually how to engage and motivate the athlete so that we're doing it with them, not necessarily for them. So kicking as well, I had a fantastic opportunity last week or the week before to do some coaching in MATP, and we were just exploring the different areas that you can do. And one of the things that kind of struck me was I had an athlete who was in a wheelchair, and when I said, let's try some kicking, I was told, but they can't, like, they're in a wheelchair, they can't. And I said, you can always find out. So we worked to help his foot come out of the strap, and then we're able to work on getting a football on a platform at the right height for that foot plate that his foot was resting on. And then we worked really hard in kind of helping him to program that movement, to move his foot just slightly to the left, to be able to knock that football off the little platform that we'd made for him. And he was able to do it. Now, it took a little bit of time because we had to kind of set it all up, and we had to help him to kind of discover where that movement pattern was, to be able to kind of send it down to his foot to be able to do that. But nothing is impossible in MATP. But what we really, really want to make sure is that we are linking these skills to sport-specific activities as well. The same with football. I've had a MATP athlete who really loves football. Him and his whole family love football. And again, he had very limited mobility in his legs and his feet. But we made football happen for him because that was a sport he was engaged with. That was something that motivated him. And we want our athletes to develop their own motivation to want to move, and their own motivation to be linked to a sport as well. So these are our different areas, and these core areas can be adapted in lots of different ways. And when we think about that, sometimes we think about actually what equipment we might use, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I want to talk about actually the benefits of MATP. And we saw in that video that there's quite a few benefits to MATP. I asked you to think about what is the benefits, or what is the athlete getting from this? What are the family members getting from this? And what are the coaches getting from it, and the teachers and the support staff as well? And we've seen across MATP for years that there's lots and lots of benefits. There's definitely a lot more benefits than anything else in MATP, so definitely get involved. We see increased physical activity for people with profound disabilities. And this increase in physical activity leads to improvements in motor skills, skill acquisition, physical fitness, and functional ability. Now, that functional ability is that movement ability that I was talking about. We might be working on grasp and release and linking that to a sport, but actually this might help somebody to be able to be more dexterous in terms of holding cutlery or being able to feed themselves. There's more opportunities to perform sport-specific activities. We're not asking for the athletes to complete full sport skills. We break down those skills and we link them to sport to make sure that it's relevant to the athlete and their needs. A development of a more positive self-image through skill acquisition. It is wonderful to work with our athletes who are non-verbal, cannot communicate verbally with you, but they can communicate and they can show you that they know that they are learning and that they're making progress. There's nothing like working with athletes who communicate through their eyes, and they will watch a whole audience at a challenge event to make sure everybody is looking at them before they will do their activity, because they know that they have something that they are going to showcase, and they know that they've got a more positive self-image of themselves, that they want people watching them and all eyes on them as well. The greater family interaction through sport involvement is really important. We work with the most vulnerable athletes, but we also work with the most vulnerable families and the most isolated families as well. MATP gives a reason to bring families together, and families together that live day in, day out for the needs of their athletes with profound disabilities, allowing us to kind of give actually back to the families as well, and give them that kind of forum and kind of connection to other families, and just to kind of break down some of the loneliness and some of the isolation that families of people with profound disabilities face as well. And seeing those families come together and celebrate together is just incredible. And it's one of the biggest kind of benefits, I think, of MATP as well. More opportunities to develop friendships with other athletes, with family members, and to engage the wider community. MATP can absolutely be done at home, it can be done at school, it can be done within a setting, a community support setting, it can be done in a home for people with disabilities. But I always encourage people that once you've got MATP embedded into your setting, bring it out, like let people go into the wider kind of arenas, into different facilities in the community, because the rest of the community need to see how special our MATP athletes are, and the impact that that has when we go out wider into the community is amazing, because a lot of people have not had the pleasure yet of working with people with profound disabilities. So it's our job to make sure that we're engaging with the wider community to make sure that happens. So just as we kind of start to wrap up, MATP, I know you're kind of thinking about, the different way that we break down the skills, but also about the equipment that we might use with that. I think MATP is about being really, really creative with equipment. So on the next slide, we see that MATP is about adaptation. And I always allow people, when we're working on MATP, I kind of have two rules: have fun and be creative. And you have to be creative with the movement, but also with the equipment. So it's the skill element of the sport and the interests of the athlete and the sensory need of the athlete that's important. It isn't about having fancy equipment. It isn't about spending a lot of money on equipment. It's about being creative to make sure that we are using equipment that will actually suit their needs. Be creative, and there's lots of different ways here you can see in these photos where we've been creative. So this is one of my athletes on the left, and he has no movement below his neck. So he uses a ramp with a ball, and he uses his head to launch the ball down at loads of skittles. This is the athlete I'm talking about, who will eye track to make sure everybody's watching before he releases that ball, just to make sure all eyes are on him. And then you'll see one of my colleagues there on the right, and she's using like different equipment, and she's got loads of fantastic videos on YouTube as well that talk about actually how you adapt different equipment for MATP. We're working on this with guidance to show how can you adapt what you've got already, and how you can make connections maybe with design technology, sports technology, to help create more bespoke equipment as well. There are some fantastic examples of equipment and adaptations of equipment for MATP all around the world, and we're working on pulling together a resource to be able to kind of showcase that and give people some kind of ideas for how to be creative. I always say MATP, though, is about using what you've got. One of the things we learned in 2020 and 2021 was actually how to adapt what we already have in the home. And MATP didn't stop because we weren't allowed out. We brought MATP into our houses by adapting what we already had. I remember doing a training in a very rural part of Malaysia, and we didn't have any equipment at the MATP training. So we took down curtains, or we took cloth and made it into parachutes. We rolled up paper to make it into balls. We got a gutter or a box and turned it into a ramp. There's lots of different ways that we can like adapt our equipment to make it important. But one of the most important things is making sure that the athlete is involved in selecting and even creating that equipment. I've got some fantastic MATP groups that got some material and actually painted their own parachute. And when people have had a integral role in actually making the equipment, they'll probably be more motivated to use that equipment too. But making sure that we're linking that to the sensory needs of people as well. So just to kind of finish on a little bit about like coaching MATP, it's really important that we talk about coaching levels of assistance. And this is something that we are reviewing, because it's really important to understand that an athlete is given the minimum amount of assistance necessary to enable them to do the sport or do the skill. And that's at a particular time, because that can change from morning to evening, from a club training to a quiet room or to a big sports hall. And I'd like to thank Sean at Special Olympics Ireland for kind of talking to me about this just the other day. And this is really important that we review this because we talked about levels, and I always like to talk about this from a coach perspective, because there was a misconception that maybe we work through those levels, but that's not what it is. These levels are there so we understand that movement looks different for everybody in MATP. And some people might be getting full assistance with their movement in one skill, but might only need partial assistance in another. We might have some athletes that can move quite independently in one skill, but then might need assistance in another. So this is actually almost like a coaching tool rather than you must do it this way. This is to really, really consider that every MATP athlete needs different levels of assistance. And the full assistance, I think it's really, really important to understand that actually full assistance can be a really valuable coaching tool, because the motor patterning that we're trying to create in MATP is taught through passive movement sometimes. And just because we have hand on hand, if we use that as a coaching moment, we can actually coach people to create and produce and program the right motor programs in the brain to then send out into the body. So use it as a coaching tool rather than seeing it as you're doing it for somebody, you're actually using it as a coaching tool. We're going to share a link in the chat to some fantastic resources that have come from our friends at Special Olympics Munster, which is a region in Special Olympics Ireland. And these are fantastic coaching resources, because the link that you'll get sent shows how you can coach kicking to a variety of different athletes. And thanks, Jeff, he's just after putting it in the chat box there. So click on that and save it, and then go back to it and have a look at it. And I want you to really think about how that coach coaches lots of different people across different levels of assistance that they need. So she coaches kicking to somebody who has limited movement, is a wheelchair user, and the way she coaches with dignity as well is she will bring the ball up and say, we're going to do some kicking now. I'm going to place this down at your foot. And she places the ball down at her foot out of the athlete's eye line. And she sensory touches to make sure that that athlete knows that the foot is connected to the ball. And then she says, right, I'm going to help you now. I'm going to put my hand in your leg and we're going to kick. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. And she holds her leg and kicks the ball, and she goes and kick. It's incredible. And then you see on the last athlete in that sequence of video where there's an athlete who has 3 balls in front of him in a little chute, and he's doing the kicking on his own, and he's dribbling the ball. And the way that she allows him to do that independently is beautiful. And you can see actually how one coach can coach a variety. I think there's 6 different athletes you get to see on that video with 6 very, very different needs and very, very different levels of assistance. So those are beautiful MATP coaching tools. So definitely have a look at them and think about actually how you as a coach could use some of that to kind of come up with ideas of how to coach. So we're going to move on now to a bit of a question and answer session. And before we do that, I just want to kind of give you a call to action. Hopefully you've been inspired by today, and hopefully you are really, really keen to learn more about MATP, to become an MATP coach, or to signpost and tell people about MATP. We would absolutely call you to be able to do that, because we would love for more people to join this movement of really, really providing high quality sport to people with profound disabilities. It's up to us. Nobody's going to do it for us. So we'd love you to kind of join in. We will do a poll in a little bit where you can tell us whether you want more information or not, and please engage in that, and then we'll be able to give you further information about how to get involved in MATP. Brilliant. So Kiera, are we ready for some questions and answers?
We are, but first of all, thank you for that. It was great. Me personally as a coach, because I've had first-hand experience, that you have to stretch your imagine and be creativity, and you kind of get a smile when you see people. That video, I smiled all the way through because all the emotions were shown. But yeah, I've got a question for you, and then you've got a question for me.
Yeah.
So my question for you is, it seems your relationships with the athletes is very important for MAPT sports. How can coaches go about creating a trusting relationships with their athletes? Because it's a big part of their MATP.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you've asked that, because that is a really big part of MATP. A lot of our athletes they maybe don't communicate verbally. And communication is really important. You cannot build a relationship if you don't engage in actually how that person can communicate and how they like to communicate with you, and vice versa. I remember the first time I started coaching MATP, I'm a talker. I think everybody can see that. And I went in coaching MATP athletes, and I was all chat, and waiting for a response that didn't come verbally. And I had to learn how to communicate. Kiera's laughing because she knows. I had to learn how to communicate without words. And that's really important. When you're working with MATP athletes, it is finding out how they communicate. That is the number one thing to coach and to build that coaching relationship. Also, and we've mentioned it a few times, people with profound disabilities a lot of the time come with one-to-one support or two-to-one support because of their complex needs and the amount of different needs that they have. Build a relationship, not just with the athlete, but with that person as well that comes with them. Empower that person to become a coach as well. And that's really, really important. And you need to build that relationship with everybody. A lot of the time, people who are working one-on-one with somebody with profound disabilities, they know how to communicate most effectively. When we're developing our resources, we'll obviously work on this, and we'll put in some kind of top tips and kind of insight into how to build those relationships with MATP athletes. But there is a principle that we work with a lot with people with profound disabilities and complex communication and sensory needs called intensive interaction. And what we actually give in terms of guidance linked to how you build those relationships and communicate with our MATP athletes will be built on the evidence that comes from intensive interaction that we use with people with profound disabilities. And that intensive interaction is like that intensive sensory communication that we need to develop and not just rely on verbal all the time. So I'd say a coach needs to learn the hard lesson like I did about communication is not just verbal, and you have to be able to communicate to be able to build that relationship. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, it was great. Fantastic. Your turn. What's my question?
So your question, Kiera, because I know you've done a lot of work with me with MATP. What would you say to people who are maybe a little bit hesitant about getting involved in MATP?
I would say that this program is accessible for everyone. You don't need expensive equipment, and you can achieve it by adapting parts of your work or a session plan for the coaches here. MATP is a pathway to make sport more inclusive for everyone, and it's just trying to look at what your session is and going, can I tweak little bits of it rather than going, oh, I've got this session. How are we going to adapt it? Do I need to spend lots of money? No, it's just trying to be creative, have motivation. And for me, working with athletes who do MATP, it's listening and watching the body language to see how they're feeling, how they got it, are they excelling everybody's expectations, which the answer should be yes, they are, because they've been given an opportunity that they might not necessarily be given in everyday life. So that's what I would say to that question. But back to you, because you have a poll for everyone, don't you?
I do indeed. Thank you very much, Kiera. And yeah, I just love hearing you talk about MATP as well, because we've had some fantastic experiences working with MATP athletes. And also Kiera does a lot of work with me on creating that kind of unified approach to MATP as well, and working with athlete leaders and working with young leaders as well to make sure that we're doing a lot more peer kind of involvement with MATP. So here is a little poll that we'd like you to engage in. And the two questions are, would you like more information about MATP? Hopefully we've inspired you to want more information. Would you like any further training to become an MATP coach? Please engage in that, because we'll be able to then contact you directly to let you know more about information on it, or more information on becoming an MATP coach as well. I can see that you are very, very engaged in that poll at the moment, and the numbers are flying up. We're delighted to see so many people who want to join our MATP family. That is fantastic. And that is it. You're part of our family. And when I do trainings for MATP, I always introduce people to Special Olympics, because a lot of people we work with in MATP maybe don't know that Special Olympics exists for them yet. My first welcome is always open arms to the Special Olympics family, and then it's open arms to the MATP family as well. So I'm glad to see we have lots of people engaging in that poll. And yeah, we look forward to telling you more about MATP, and we also look forward to giving you more information on how you can become trained as an MATP coach, and how you can help spread this fantastic program across our movement. Brilliant. So we will move on, Kiera, to resources.
Thank you, Niamh. So yeah, everyone hold on for this. It's the last bit, I promise, but it's been fantastic so far. As you know, Special Olympics offers a number of fantastic resources for coaches to continue to learn and improve their coaching knowledge. We have our Special Olympics online learning portal. It has a huge number of courses across relating to coaching, fitness, health, and protective behaviours, and links to the online learning portal should be on the screen or in the chats as well. So any links or web pages, they will be in the chats, and I'm sure you'll be sent them as well after the webinar. The Special Olympics website hosts a number of different resources for different areas, so be sure to check them out. At resources at specialolympics.org for access to all of these amazing resources, including the MATP resource page. All these pages will help you to continue your coaching at Special Olympics for the athletes to make sure you're top notch. Also, the dashboard has come back. Yay, we're using it again this year. So it helps coaches to interact. You can ask questions to speakers or hosts. You can also find the resources, recordings of the webinars, presented slides. This interactive dashboard is your one-stop shop for everything Coach Webinar Series related. Be sure to get your questions in early for next week's panel. You do not want to miss that. Next week will be about coaching youth athletes. This week, we focused on coaching and engaging MAPT athletes. Next week, you'll see how we can create an amazing sporting experience for all youth athletes. Thank you again for our partner Gallagher for the support of the Special Olympics Coach Webinar Series 2023. And thank you, the Lions Club International Foundation, for their continued support of the Special Olympics and our MATP programming. Make sure you register now if you haven't, so you don't miss it out. The registration link should be in the chat. But thank you very much, everyone. It's been a fabulous webinar. Thank you, Niamh. Thank you, Rebecca, who shared in a video before, because unfortunately she couldn't join us. But hopefully you enjoy next week.